we're here to learn how we can become a person of influence. And let me begin this by telling you my story. So for most of my life, all I wanted to do was to be a principal of a school. I went and I got my undergrad degree in social studies in ESL. I taught at Shakopee High School for several years. And then I got my administrative certificate from the University of Minnesota. I worked as an assistant principal for a couple of years in some schools up in the Twin Cities area of Minnesota. And then one fine day, Owatonna Junior High School called me up and said, "Hey, Jason, how would you like to be our junior high principal?" Now, I know for some of you, that's the content of nightmares, right? Are you kidding me? Girl drama, trying to find drugs, and no, you can't get enough extra credit on the last day of school to move your grade from an F to a C? But that was my dream. It was my career aspiration. So I said, absolutely, I'll be your junior high principal. I hung up the phone, ran over to my wife, we did the happy dance together, and we moved our family from Shakopee down to Owatonna. And the first year of leadership was everything I imagined it to be. People were nice to me. They invited me to their social events. They did what I asked them to do. It was beautiful. And then year 2 hit. And in year 2, I found myself hiding in a portable classroom. You see, the gloves came off in year 2, and I'd recognized that I was leading a school with an extremely toxic culture. Our teachers weren't being nice to each other. We had some serious issues in regards to student discipline and attendance. When it comes to standardized test scores, we had nothing good to talk about at all. And here I was as the principal of this junior high, trying to figure out how to solve these issues. You see, I realized that everything rises and falls on leadership. So even though I didn't cause all these problems, I certainly did cause some of them, but even though I didn't cause some of these problems, I knew that it was my job to help solve these problems. And so once I recognized this, I started showing up early, and I started staying later, and I'd work and work and work. I did everything that I possibly could do, and nothing was changing. But this time it was a little bit different. I went with a little bit of curiosity, like what could I really do to change this culture we were working in? And I started asking some questions. I'd come over to somebody like John, and I'd say, "Hey, John, I've been your principal for a couple of years. You know what's not going well. I know what's not going well. Help me understand, what can I do to become better?" And John would give me some feedback. And I started with my friends, right? Those people that I know really well. And they gave me some casual feedback that helped a little bit. But there was one individual that I knew I just needed to talk to. One person who really spoke the truth. She was the union president of the school. Now, if you know anything about principals and union presidents, we typically don't get along, and this was certainly the case in this situation. But since she spoke the truth, I knew that I needed to talk to her. So I went over and I asked her. And I said, "Ann, can we have a conversation about my leadership?" She got this big old smile on her face like she'd been waiting for this day since the moment I began. She said, "Absolutely." She grabbed me around the shoulder and she said, "Oh, Jason, you're just so messed up." She said, "You think that leadership is about your position." And she was right. 32 years old at the time, half of her age. Walking around leading a school of 800 students and 100 staff members. You bet I felt good about that. It feels good to have that position, to walk around with your chest puffed out and thinking about how wonderful it is to be in that position, have the nice paycheck and get all the nice extra benefits that come around with it. She said, "That's not what leadership is." Then she said, "You think leadership is about knowledge." And again, this one hurt a little bit. I'd gone to some great universities. I read a ton of books. I'm a pretty smart guy. And I thought that really was what leadership was about. She said, "No, it's not that." But the one that hurt the most is she said, "You think that leadership is about management." Now, how many of us here in the audience, we love to be just get stuff done. We're task-oriented people. We like flow charts, and we like to be able to organize things and make sure that everything's kind of set up and in place, right? Are we there? Yeah, a lot of us. That's how I was too. We completely redid the entire staff handbook, the student handbook. Organizationally, our school was perfect, but it wasn't working. She said, "Leadership isn't about management. You need management, but that's not what it's about." And then she gave me this analogy that just stuck with me forever. She said, "Jason, it's kind of like you're a locomotive and you're going full steam down the tracks, but you've not connected to any of your boxcars. And a locomotive that's not connected to any of your boxcars is useless. So I've studied this for the last 6 years. I've really tried hard to get a good understanding of what it takes to have influence with other individuals. And this is a complicated subject. There are hundreds of books, maybe even thousands of books on influence and leadership. And I'm a simple guy. I like to break things down into a very simple way. So here's what I got for you. Today I'm going to share with you 4 different components of influence. And then for each one of these components, I'm going to share with you one practical, relevant tool that you can take away right now, today, and put into practice as soon as we're done.
He's like, Jason, you don't get it. I said, well, what do I not get? He says, well, I've been working with Jerry for 25 years. Jerry's a 3. He's just a 3. I've known him for a long time, and I don't care how many times he's going to tell me he's a 10. He's not. He is a 3. And I said, okay, Tom, can I challenge you to do something? He said, I don't know. I said, can you go back to work when we're done with this conference, and can you at least look for some evidence, right? Be a seeker of good and find if he's maybe a 4. Can you look for some evidence that maybe he's a 4? Reluctantly, he agreed to that. 2 months later, I get an email from Tom. And it right bold letters all the way across the email. It says, guess what, Jason? Jerry's actually a 5.
And tool number 1 is this. Give a crap. Give a crap. Let me explain. Ashlyn is a student at St. Olaf University. She's been a member of our church. And one Sunday, just a little bit before our services started, she sent me a text. And it said, Dear Bishop Hunt, I'm not coming to church anymore. I don't feel like I belong or connect. I feel like I'm a project. Please don't contact me again. And verbally I said, oh crap. You see, Ashlyn was somebody we cared a lot about. We care about the young people in our church. But for one reason or another, we didn't end up showing the care that we have for Ashlyn. Therefore, she didn't feel like she belonged to our organization. Unfortunately, 69% of all people that leave jobs don't feel like they're appreciated or belong to their organization. It's not money, it's not culture, it's nothing. It's just the sense that they don't belong to the organization. You see, giving a crap's not necessarily always the easy thing to do. Sometimes we don't want to give a crap at all, but we know that every single one of our employees, everybody in our organization, they want to know that we actually do give a crap about them. By the way, for those of you wondering, CRAP is an acronym. It stands for Celebration, Recognition, Appreciation, and Praise. C-R-A-P, CRAP. Celebration, Recognition, Appreciation, and Praise. Unfortunately, 50% of over 13,000 people interviewed across all of America have received 0 appreciation in the last 12 months. I'm not okay with that number. I think as leaders, we need to do something different. We need to really intentionally show crap to other individuals. We need to be able to take time to celebrate accomplishments, to be able to recognize the wonderful attitudes that they come into our work with, to appreciate the skills and the qualities and the gifts that people have that work with us, and to be able to praise people for their hard work.
This is a report card that we received a couple years ago from my oldest son, Ethan. Take a look at that for a minute. And why don't you go ahead and think about, maybe even throw in chat, what's the first thing that you would do if this was your son's report card? Now, I don't know about you, but for me, I certainly turned to my son and I said, Ethan, tell me what's going on in English class. And he came up with some kind of crazy excuse, and I interrupted him. And I said, no, Ethan, I don't think you get it. You see, in our house, Hunts don't get C's. And then I proceeded to give him an outline of what we're going to do. I said, Ethan, first off, we're going to get extra help for you in your class. Secondly, we're going to have your teacher send home some extra practice that we can be able to do here at home. Third, we're also going to look at some after-school support. Maybe there's some tutoring or guidance you can get after school. And we're going to ask you to do these 3 things and work really, really hard at them. But please know that if these 3 things don't work, your mom and I are more than willing to hire the meanest and ugliest tutor we could find to help you improve your grade. Well, I think we scared him because he started working harder. And for the next month, he put everything he had into his class. And he moved his grade. He got his grade from a C all the way up to a B minus. A B minus. We were quite disappointed in that. But we were disappointed because we didn't understand this one fundamental rule about human personality. And this is what the rule is. When you focus on weaknesses, the best you can normally expect.
So imagine for a minute, I got my great volunteer over here, Nan. Thank you for joining me, okay? Imagine for a minute that Nan and I are co-workers, right? We work at the same place. And I'm showing up to work, it's in the morning, I see her in the hallway, I walk by and I say, hey Nan, how's it going?
Great.
Good. Yep. And she says good. Okay? That's standard. She might ask me the question, right? If I ask you how you're doing, what do you normally ask me?
How you doing?
And I'm doing fine. And we keep walking by from each other. These are what I call dumb questions. D-U-M-B, don't use my brain. Okay, they're dumb questions because we honestly don't use our brain. It's kind of a formality we do in America. In fact, I could walk by Nan and I could ask her how she's doing, and she might say, my dog just died. And I could walk by and say, oh, that's great, I'm fine. You know? Why? We do this all the time because we're not very good at connecting with people. We keep asking dumb questions. If we truly want to connect with people, we've got to dive deeper into questions. What do you dream about? What's your aspirations? What's your goals? What do you really want to get out of life? What do you sing about? What's going on right now that's just amazing? That just gets you excited? And what do you cry about? What's bothering you? What's keeping you up late at night? What do you dream about? What do you sing about? What do you cry about? Imagine for a moment that you knew the answers to these 3 questions for all of your direct reports. You see, one of the reasons why we keep thinking about our response when we're talking to somebody is we don't like the pause. The pause is uncomfortable. It's that awkward silence that we get into. And as humans, we want to stay far away from that. What if we put it on its head, though? What if we intentionally created awkward pause? What if we allowed 3 seconds to go by after somebody was communicating with us and just stared at them? Yes, it's going to be uncomfortable for us and for them. But since we're doing it intentionally, what happens? Imagine if we from today, if this conference, we go out of here and we just permit the pause with other people we're interacting with. What would that do to your spouse relationships? To your relationships with kids, to your coworker relationships, to those that you lead? How much better a listener could we get if we simply allowed 3 seconds of pause to go by?
In fact, do this for me. Put both hands up in the air, as high as you can do them. As high as you can do. All right, do it just a little bit more. See that? We all can do just a little bit more than what we're currently doing. We can all do just a little more than what we're doing. So I challenge you, let's stop being average. Let's get upset at that word anytime that we hear it and say, you know what, let's start doing things uncommonly.